Okay, everybody, this is the HBL lesson for term 3, week 4. What you will need is your chapter 8 worksheet for the outsiders that we are working on. I have uploaded it to Google Classroom and you already have the whole stack of it with you. Okay, and so this is what we are going to do for today. We are going to focus on practicing our annotation skills, which is basically looking at details. This is important because it will help you in the long run, not just for literature, but even for things like comprehension, for history, for social studies, so on and so forth. So we are going to practice this detail thing. After that, we will also look a little bit about family, which is one of the big ideas in The Outsiders. Okay, so if you have a look at the worksheet which I have with me, please make sure you read through the plot summary. Make sure you have read through chapter 8. We are looking at this passage where Johnny is in the hospital, he's in bad shape, and then what we see is that the nurse tells Johnny that his mum has come to see him. Okay, obviously Johnny is very upset. So let's have a look at the question. What are your feelings? Which means that you need to give me your emotional response. Let me just clarify at this point. Emotional response, you cannot say I feel Johnny is very sensitive, because that is a characteristic. You need to give me a feeling, and it must be about your feeling. Okay, in this passage means that we must focus on the passage. Okay, so what is the key idea? What is the main thing going on in the passage? Of course, it's Johnny's reaction to this news. So that is what you should look at. Okay, don't tell me about your feelings about Johnny, about the fact that how does Johnny feel when he sees the nurse. No, that is not the focus. The focus is the response to this news that his mother is coming to see him. Okay, so at this point, I would like you to pause the video and spend some time annotating the passage. I want you to focus on Johnny. Okay, I want you to think about what emotions is he experiencing, and you should highlight the clues that tell you all this. And you might be asking me, Mr. Low, what clues do we have? As we remember, when we are talking about character and we want to know what they are like, we always look at a few things. We look at actions, we look at speech, we look at tone, so on and so forth. We look at thoughts, okay? And the way that Johnny is expressing himself. So take a few minutes, I would say 2 or 3 minutes, to highlight all the clues which tell you about Johnny. Okay, I will be going through them. So the purpose of this is so that you can check that you are annotating the same thing as me. Okay, so please pause. Once you are ready, then continue with the video. Okay, now at this point, I assume that you have already finished annotating, and let me run through what I would have annotated. Okay, the first thing I would have done is when I look at a passage, I would quickly try to summarize what is the key issue. So I read, a nurse appeared in the doorway. Johnny, she said quietly, your mother's here to see you. Oh, there should be an open inverted comma there. Okay. And then we see Johnny's reaction. Then the nurse says, she's your mother. She seems to assume that Johnny wants to see his mother. And we see that Johnny's reaction is rather violent, right? So I would say that Johnny's reaction is very intense. Okay, and I know that he doesn't want to see his mother. So I would start looking at all the things which tell me about Johnny. Okay, so we see Johnny open his eyes, which means to say he was sleeping before that. It was something of note. At first they were wide with surprise, and then they darkened. So straight away, I should be thinking of surprise and darkened. So Johnny is surprised. Johnny is surprised. So I need to start thinking, why is he surprised? So I think to myself, hey, you know, previously I know that Johnny does not have a good relationship with his mother, so he probably does not expect a visit. But now that there is a visit, that they darken, what does it mean when somebody's expression darkens? Clearly Johnny's not in a good mood. In fact, darkening suggests some kind of anger and resentment that he doesn't want to see her, which we can see. He says, I don't want to see her. And how does he say it? Just now we said we were looking at tone. He says it firmly. He appears, Johnny, oops, sorry, typo, is very sure, which is very strange, right? The fact that he doesn't want to see his mother, you know, even though he's in a terrible state, all right? And then we see the nurse say, she's your mother. And we then look at what Johnny says. He says, I said I don't want to see her. Now we see something interesting here. We have repetition. So Johnny repeats himself. And we can imagine the tone that Johnny is using, right? Let me just use a different color to... Why does he repeat himself? What does it suggest when you repeat yourself? He is insistent. He wants his way, right? Now, this is very interesting. He doesn't want to see her. So repetition is something I can pick out. And now we see his tone. His voice is rising. Now, what does rising suggest? His emotions are riled up. Riled up means to say he's getting agitated, right? Sorry, that is not a good way to express it. So something is making Johnny very agitated. She'll probably come to tell me about all the trouble I'm causing her and how glad her and the old man will be when I'm dead. Well, tell her to leave me alone. Okay, so now I know I have to pay attention to what Johnny is saying. So let's have a look at this. Let's try to summarize it. What is Johnny saying? Johnny is saying that how does he see his mother? Okay, that's something I want you all to fill in by yourself. Go and think about it. When Johnny says this, what does it say about how he thinks about his mother? Okay. And now, this is very interesting. Well, tell her to leave me alone. Why does he not want to see her? Okay. And his voice broke. Why do people's voices break, you know? What is it indicative of? It indicates great emotional turmoil, okay, which is a phrase to say that, you know, there's so many emotions going on, which is very difficult for Johnny at this point, okay, to leave me alone. That's what he wants. Why does he say this? Okay, and now we look at this. Now, in this passage, we need to pay very careful attention to Johnny's physical condition, okay. I'm going to use a different color to highlight his physical condition. He was struggling to sit up. Remember, he's weak, but yet he's still struggling. Then he gasped. Gasp means what? Not enough breath. Went whiter than the pillowcase, so he's losing blood. And then he passed out cold. So what can we conclude? Johnny's physical exertion. You know, he is already injured. But why is he exerting himself? Because I would guess that he is reacting to the news of his mother coming, right? And he probably doesn't want to see her. He wants to make sure that he is not bedridden, that he can react. Alright? So that is what is going on in this passage. So as you can see, just by paying attention to the details, we can already figure out how S.E. Hinton delivered this message to us, and that is what we need to respond to. So while you might say that I am very upset, or I pity Johnny, or I sympathize with Johnny, or I feel very sad for Johnny, these are all the details which increase Johnny's sadness, the difficulty of his condition, which is what you can use to as ammunition to beef up your writing. All right. And so if you think about this, remember I said I was going to talk a little bit about family. Who then is Johnny's family? Okay, I think this is one of the questions which is being asked this incident. Okay, so for today's piece of work, I would like you to work on this. What are your feelings for Johnny? If you are not sure, remember you always need a point and a reason. Okay, you need evidence to back it up. If you can, show me 2 pieces of evidence that demonstrates a pattern. In this case, you could use Johnny's speech. That's your first point. And his physical reaction, which then shows another point. So we have the pattern of Johnny's great agitation, right? So from here, from your evidence, what you want to do is to tell me why the author is structuring the scene in such a way. For example, sorry, bad example. You need to start to tell me how come S.E. Hinton wanted to portray Johnny in this manner, and of course you need to link back. How does it make you feel? Okay, so you can do it on a piece of foolscap paper. Let me show you an example, a very simple example, not a fully developed one. If you look at the end of the chapter, end of the worksheet, you will see this here, which is very simple. It shows you how it's done. I feel sad for Johnny because he does not have a good relationship with his mother, which is what we would assume, right? So then you can have a look at how my explanation matches my evidence all the time, and how the whole thing comes together. So take some time to read it, okay, so you can understand, you have something to follow if you're not sure. I would like to point out that this is just this is the basic example. We must master this first, then we will look at more advanced forms of writing. All right, so I hope you enjoy your HBL. The work is simply to work on this particular passage, write a response to it, do it on a piece of foolscap paper. All right, okay, I look forward to seeing you all back when you come back to school. Let's everybody please stay healthy.